It is Saturday, August 6th here at the West End Gun Clubs. A little bit past 5:30. I got here before 5. Started shooting before 5. Just trying to run through test loads of the 7 PRC before people get here. And I was actually out here on Labor Day, September 1st, Monday, and I fired off 20 rounds, but I'd recorded footage. I didn't post a vlog. It was a very short session because it started getting crowded and I just didn't want to be here too long, so I just left and I didn't really cut any video. That being said, in that range session, I shot the BR2s 15 rounds, which I shot a 15 shot aggregate string on one single pacer, and it wasn't that great, but I plotted the shots and I was trying to see like what was happening there. But I'll use that for my blog article on this build. But I shot 5 rounds with Winchester large rifle primers, and these are old school primers from like 20 years ago. And I shot a great group with those 5-round string. SD was like 7 or 8, but it was a really tight group. And so this morning I already fired 10 rounds with CCI 200s, which is CCI's standard large rifle primer. And it shot okay. I shot a 10-round string on a single target paster, and I am going to shoot 30 more rounds, or at least 15 more rounds, because I've loaded 3 10-round batches, all of the same load with 68.8 grains of H1000 with the Berger 175 grain Elite Hunters. This first 10 I shot was once fired, but now I'm dipping back into another box of brand new brass, and I did just neck size it, or I mandreled it just to open it up, make sure the necks are uniform, relatively speaking. And I loaded 10 rounds on this new brass, same load, 68.8 grains H1000, Berger 175s, but with CCI 200s, the standard large rifle primer, CCI BR2s, and then the Winchester large rifles. I did find in my primer stash some older CCI 250s, which is the large rifle magnums. And if you remember, for those of you old enough, CCI used to have kind of like different colors for each primer type. So BR2s back in the day were like a teal and white box, like a light blue and white box. The CCI 250s are like a red and white box, like that. So it's an older style design of the packaging. In any case, I found 3 sleeves for like 300 primers. I mean, 2 or 3 sleeves. This is back in the day when you can actually just go in the store and buy like just one single box of like 100. Because now you just buy a brick, right? And most stores won't even split the brick. But this is back in the day when you could just buy a sleeve. So I was messing around with the large rifle magnums in $1,000, I think. But in any case, I'm going to try those out later. And you hope that old production 250s and new production 250s should still shoot the same. Hopefully they didn't change the priming compound and it won't affect it like old versus new production. But we'll see. If you hear some noise in the background, that's because my barrel cooler the fan is running on my barrel, so I'm just cooling the barrel down. But we'll wait a couple more minutes, and then we'll shoot the next string on this target, so that we'll be done before the line opens up for Saturday. I'm likely going to do a review of the Leupold Mark IV HD scope sometime in the near future. And I did notice that a difference between the Leupold Mark IV HD and the 5 HDs, I think they used a different hex screw for the set screws on the zero stop mechanism for their turrets, which is kind of annoying because I like the larger hex screw that they used for the Mark V HD, but these ones use a smaller one. Looks like I'm using a 1/16, which is pretty small, but I prefer the larger hex heads. Just, I don't know, for some reason I think the larger ones at least likely chance of stripping the screws. So kind of wish they did it that way, but in any case, what I need to do is actually I need to dial this back up. So I need to actually take the cap off, dial it down rather. And so if I'm gonna go, I need to go down. Let's find me something here. That's one click there. That should be that. But I think we'll come down 1/10 on this, based on what we're shooting this morning. All right. Cool down a little bit more, and we'll shoot again. Alright guys, let's take a quick look at this target. Left target was the first tenor of the day. This was the CCI 200s, or the standard large rifle primers. Let me just adjust my lights here on my headlamp. This is the first 2 rounds of the day, and then the rest of it floated higher. So I think this is going to be more of a cold bore tendency, but this is pretty good. If you eliminate those 2, that's less than an inch. Second target, or the second 10-round string, is going to be the CCI BR2s. Pretty good. We floated the second shot low, but the rest of it tended around this area. And a third 10-round string was the Winchester large rifle primers. I feel like this is more shooter than anything. I was starting to get kind of worn out just running through these rounds on the 7 PRC. It's not a heavy magnum, but it definitely does beat on you a little bit. So I'm not entirely sure if this is a 5-round group here and a 5-round group here as far as splitting the 10, because I did take a break. I wasn't really paying attention on the plot of the shots, so I don't know if these are going to be 2 distinct 10-round string or 5-round groups here, but if it's just going to be a mix of like left and right as far as the targets are the target's concerned. So interesting kind of grouping here, because last time I was out, I did shoot a 5-round string, and it shot really tight. I would say it was about a 1/2 inch or less than 1/2 inch. It was more of a left to right than a vertical. So I feel like this is shooter than anything. But we may try out Winchester large rifle primers again, because this SD on this was like 5.7. I don't recall. I'd have to look at my phone to see what these were, but I think this was like more of 11, and this was somewhere around 8 for the SDs. In any case, that's it for this range session as far as shooting. Let's go to wind down this vlog. I'm going to pack up my gear, and then we'll close this vlog out. I scooted up to the upper range. It is technically closed, but I got permission from the range officer to come up here to record some footage. I told him I'm not going to shoot. I'm just here to close up my vlog and record some review footage and take some photos of a different gun. In any case, as far as the data I mentioned earlier with the targets, the first 10-round string with CCI 200s, so the large rifle primers, we had an average of 3041, which is pretty warm actually, and 11.2 SD. CCI BR2's 10-round aggregate, we had an average of 3014, So 3041 versus 3014. Standard deviation 8.8, and then with the Winchester large rifle primers, we had an average of 3020 feet per second with a standard deviation of 5.5. So it was actually a better standard deviation, but the group was pretty bad. Let's quickly show that target again. If you want to see it right here, this is the CCI 200s, BR2s, and then the Winchester large rifle. So I think we're starting to settle down. Get these, anomalous shots, but I think we're honing in on this as far as we'll stick with 68.8. I did acquire some N565, so I'm going to probably try that out as well, just to get a little bit more testing with this gun, and then we'll do a write-up of this whole project and see where we're at. But I think we're now over 100 rounds on this gun, or at least 100 shots through this gun. I have to count the factory ammo that I shot, but I usually keep track of how many rounds I've shot based on the reloads or my brass, like how many times they've been reloaded, how you go through them. So it's an easy way for me to count that. But when you factor in factory ammo, sometimes you forget as far as what you shot. So I'll have to count the factory ammo brass that I have that's been fired. Anyway, not much more else to talk about here today or this morning for this session. What else? I've got like so many little projects that I'm trying to get done, and this is mostly with gear. I need to really do a review of the Senate Gen 2, which I have yet to play with. I'm trying to do a review of the Area 419 mounts because I've acquired another mount. I am replacing one of the scope mounts from my Zecos on my Voodoos with an Area 419. So I think I'll take the opportunity to record or write something up on Area 419 mounts because I've just started shifting towards them. However, I did not use an Area 419 ring on this project, and I will talk about that when I do my article on this build because it'll just give me some it's just some more things that I want to talk about, or reasoning why I chose certain parts for this gun, but I'll bring that up in that article. So you'll have to wait for that. And I also need to do an article on this thing. What else do I need to do? I mean, I wanted to do a recording on, or at least an article and a kind of a video overview of the Garmin Fortrex, the 901. And I wanted to do a kind of a write-up on the Calypso. Yeah, there's so many things that I've acquired, like all this kit that I just haven't had time to really sit down and write and record something. And I always deviate because I get something else, a new piece of kit, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's work on this. And then I skipped over something I bought like 2 months ago, or acquired 3 months ago. So yeah, there's so many little things going on, and I just need to just really, put the nose to the grindstone and just start working on this stuff. So anyway, that's it for this range vlog. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to something else I'm gonna do as far as recording, but that's it for today, Saturday, August 6th, here at the West End Gun Club. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vlog.